8th, 2022 meeting of the AMATS Policy Committee to order. The time is 1:30 in the afternoon. Roll call, Ms. Salatel, are you on the phone?
Here.
Okay, speakers. Mr. Dunn? Here. Mr. Trombley, you on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And Emma?
I am here.
So we have everybody here and accounted for. We have a quorum. Okay, Aaron, public involvement announcements, please.
Of course, AMATS committee meetings are open to the public, and the public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. Business items are first presented on by staff or consultants. After that, the committee can ask questions, and then it goes to the public for them to formally comment. Once the public has formally commented, it comes back for decision by the body. Each participant will have 3 minutes to speak on their topic if they choose to do so during the public comment portion of the show. A couple of housekeeping items. If you're joining us virtually and you're not a member of the committee, please turn off your camera when you're not speaking on an item. And if you're joining us by phone, to mute and unmute the microphone, press *6. And as a reminder, we do record these meetings.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, do we have an approval of the agenda?
To approve.
Approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Any changes to the agenda? All right. Any objections to adopting the agenda? Okay. The agenda is approved. Okay. Item 4, we have before us the minutes of the June 23rd, 2022 for approval. Do we have a motion for approval of those minutes?
Move to approve.
And seconded. Okay. Any changes or discussion on those minutes? Any objection to approving the minutes? Okay, hearing none. The June 23rd, 2022 minutes are approved. All right, rolling right into the action items. We have action item 5A, the PHED. Is that an acronym? PHED targets from the Department of Transportation Public Facilities. Aaron, will you give us some information on that?
Yes, so this is the peak hour excessive delay performance measure and targets that AMATS is required to adopt targets for. So really quickly, I have some background information. It might be a little bit technical, but just bear with me. So this performance measure is a little unique in a number of areas compared to other performance measures. First, being that it's very technical compared to other performance measures. It's a technical set of calculations that we have to use that I can walk people through at some point if they so desire. And we as AMATS, as an MPO of 200,000 or greater that falls within a limited maintenance area for CO and PM10, are now required to set performance measure in the second performance period. The first performance period started in 2020 and the second one starting in 2022. And so the first period was for MPOs of 1 million or greater that fell within a limited maintenance or non-attainment area. So they have set their targets, and now it's our size MPOs that are setting targets. So what is the peak hour excessive delay? This is delay that you experience if it meets 2 thresholds, or one of 2 thresholds. Travel, your speeds are 20 miles an hour or less, or if you're going 60% of a posted speed limit or less, whichever is greater. So for example, 60% of a posted speed limit on the Glen Highway at 65 miles an hour, if you are experiencing delay that causes you to go 39.5 miles an hour or less, that would be considered excessive delay. So it's not all delay, it's only kind of the extreme portions of it. And it is during the peak hours. Peak hours are defined as 6 to 10 a.m. and 4 to 8 p.m. on weekdays. And this is only for NHS facilities. It is not all public facilities. So another difference about this one is we are setting a 2-year and 4-year target. Unlike other performance measures, it's not the state sets their target first and then AMATS decides whether they want to set their own or adopt different targets. Both the state and the MPO have to come together for a unified target. So for example, we have the targets that the state has said they would like to accept. We're bringing forward for approval, whether you guys want to accept them today. If you guys choose to not accept them and want different targets, we have to go back and work with the state to reset these targets. We can't say, okay, you can accept your own and then we'll accept different ones. It's a unified target for the 2 and the 4 year. A little bit about the process. I worked with the state of Alaska representatives, James Starzik, and a bunch of people from DOT headquarters, got together, looked at a lot of the data and crunched the numbers, and then came out with some recommendations that you see before you. The 2-year target, we are recommending to be at 11 hours of PHED per capita and 12 hours for the 4-year target. So what this means is that our target is a person in a year will experience 11 hours of excessive delay in the first 2 years and then 12 hours of delay in the next 2 years. You may wonder why the targets are going up. 2021 target was 9.5, and so our 2-year target's 11, so it did increase a little bit. The reason for that is when we looked at the data, COVID, as usual, kind of came in and kind of threw things off a little, because a lot of the data is based on traffic volumes, and during COVID, the traffic volumes fell pretty substantially in certain parts, especially on the NHS facilities. And so it's kind of giving this skewed look at what excessive delay is. It looks like it's low, but it may not actually be low because the traffic volume numbers are actually going back up to pre-COVID levels. So we as a group decided that we should probably set these moderately increasing targets to reflect that going back up to pre-COVID numbers for traffic volumes. It's not all bad because we do have the ability to reassess the targets after the first 2-year period. So the first 2-year period passes, we look at them and say, you know what, we relooked at the data and we're actually showing that we're not increasing anymore. We're actually leveling out or decreasing. You know, we in the state can go back, AMATs in the state can go back and set these 4-year targets at a different target level if we want. So what we're planning on doing is after the 2-year, reassessing them, see if we want to change the targets. If we do, come back to the body and let everyone know what's going on with them. So today we are asking AMAT staff and the Technical Advisory Committee who reviewed this and recommended approval. We're asking that you approve these targets as set before you.
Any questions or comments from you, Don?
Yeah, I have a comment and then 2 questions. My first comment is I support the moderately increasing targets and would perhaps even support a higher target if appropriate. To me, that speed is less important, for example, than pedestrian deaths. And two are at odds with each other often, but not always. My question is, so you said this only applies on NHS facilities. Which of our larger roads fall into that category? So for example, does Tudor Road fall into that category or Muldoon?
Yeah, I can go and list them off. It's Seward Highway, Glen Highway, 5th, 6th, Tudor, Lake Otis, Northern Lights, most of Northern Lights, Eastern Northern Lights past a certain point, it becomes municipal non-NHS facility, Burgaw, Muldoon, Minnesota, I think I said that already. International Airport Road is another one as well.
So
AC, sorry, I know.
yes,
So those are all the NHS.
great. Okay, so those are, I think about those more in terms of like, oh, these are the roads that the state is supposed to snowplow. Though it doesn't exactly line up. So that actually does raise sort of a concern in my mind in that the community that I represent around Tudor has been advocating for a long time to lower the speed limit on Tudor, that it's 50 miles an hour in certain very highly densely populated areas, have a lot of pedestrian and other deaths, and they want to see it lowered to 45 or to 40. Now, if we did that, would that then these numbers, am I wrong to think these numbers would go up because people would then 60% of that number, we lowered the speed limit to reach these community goals. And now all of a sudden we have, by this measure, we are no longer performing as well. Is that fair?
Yes, if you do it in a vacuum. So if the only thing you're doing is slowing the speeds down, then yeah, we wouldn't meet these. But sorry, did you have another question before I go on this?
No, no, yeah, let me hear the rest of what you're going to say.
Because the thing is although you slow the speeds down, you know, and it may impact our ability to meet these targets, what we need to recognize is we're also trying to do other things to help with congestion besides adding lanes or speeds. we're trying other things like TSMO into TDM, for example. We put those
Could you-
in
could you
as
describe- could you
sorry,
explain what those acronyms mean?
TSMO, Transportation System Management Operations. So basically helping with congestion through means other than large-scale roadway expansion, so using technology or other systems like that. TDM, Transportation Demand Management, is similar to TSMO, but a little bit different. And so those might be ways to help us kind of offset. So we lower the speeds on Tudor, but we start doing more carpooling, van pooling, share ride things, increasing transit, for example. And it helps get people out of their single occupancy vehicle and it reduces that congestion level that's in there. So yes, we reduce the speeds here, but we also are reducing single occupancy vehicles, so it kind of evens out. And you have to remember that we're looking at it kind of system wide. So one change to Tudor may not be the end of the world. We would just have to analyze and see what impacts it would have.
That 60, can I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chair? That 60% number, where does that number come from? And can we alter it to 50%, for example?
It comes from FHWA. The regulations specify that specific, those two, 20 miles an hour or 60%.
So basically what you're saying is the federal government gives an incentive to increase or to have higher speed limits on these roads. This particular measure does.
I mean, I won't say that. If that's how you want to interpret it, then that's up to you.
Well, if you're penalized for people going less than 60%, then if you have a higher speed limit, it's easier to reach these numbers.
That would be a logical assumption to make, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Mrs. Altel, Mr. Tremblay, any questions? Okay. Let's move to the public. Any questions or concerns, comments from the public on this measure? Okay. I guess you did your job. Okay. So what is the will of the committee?
Oh, can I ask one more question? Sorry. Aaron, historically, what has been the goal like over the last, is this in line with what it was 10 years ago?
So there are actually two things. One, this is the first time we've ever had to set these targets, so we don't have any historical data.
Okay.
And I haven't been able to draw from other MPOs of our size because only the million or greater populations have set it. And it's not really fair to look at what like LA is doing versus us in terms of peak hour. Where we're at seems to be pretty consistent so far with some of the other areas that are in the million range. So when we get a little further along in our 2-year period, and we can actually look at other kind of similar size NPOs, it'll be good to have that background data, and we can provide that to you at the 2-year mark.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. What's the will of the committee?
Move to approve.
It's seconded. Any objections to approving the motion? All right, hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Aaron, you're not done yet. Let's move on to action item 5B, 2040 MTP Amendment 1. I'm sure you have some great information for us.
Just really quick, so you've all kind of seen this amendment. This is an amendment to the 2040 MTP. This amendment is adding the Alaska Cargo and Cold Storage Warehouse Facility to the airport property. So again, this is funded using a build grant, so that's why an airport project has to be in our MTP. This project has already been added to the TIP with the amendment number 3. And so this is kind of the final piece of it. I do want to point out that we did not have to do a transportation air quality conformity determination that we historically have to do because this type of project doesn't fall within that category of a transit or highway project. It still will require general conformity for air quality, but that'll be done by AEA, Alaska Energy Authority, and with their partners working with the airport and FAA. So that's kind of the FAA side of things that we do not have to do. I've already reached out to them and they're already I've already reached out to AEA and they're already working on it. So that's good. What's before you today is just final approval of this MTP amendment, adding this project to the 2040 MTP. We did put it out for a 30-day public comment period and bring it before the assembly, and there were no comments received. So the recommendation from the Technical Advisory Committee and staff is to approve MTP amendment number 1.
Questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, any questions or comments from the public? Yes, sir. Can you please?
Mark, I'm sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
Mark Butler with the Community Council Center. So I'm a former airporter, 2 times, airport marketing director once, and airport community relations manager during 9/11 and such. So just to understand, I read this previously. This is not to take tip dollar, transportation dollars, and put it into this project. It's just to allow this because of the federal requirement, since it's still something, just to allow it. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Because we have had, the airport has had for 30, 40 years, projects coming forth, hey, if we can just get so much money from you guys, we can build this, and so many jobs will be done, and one after another, they failed because they couldn't stand alone on their own.
No, this does not come out of the AMATS allocation. This is a separate build grant. They just have to have it approved because it routes through US DOT. It has to be approved on the tip
Thank you.
in the MPO. So, any other questions or comments from the public? Okay. All right. So what is the will of the committee?
Second.
Seconded. Any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank you, Karen. Okay, any other action items there?
No, they're not.
So, okay, all right. Moving on to agenda item 6A, Transportation System Management and Operations TSMO Plan. Aaron, do we have someone presenting on it?
With DKS Associates, project manager with DKS Associates, and I work closely with her, but Susie will be giving the presentation, so you can take a break from me today for this one. Susie, go ahead. If you want to share your screen whenever you're ready.
In the right screen. Shows the TSMO slide. Great.
You'll go over to the.
You guys got that on screen?
Yes, thank you.
So my name is Susie Sears. Are you guys getting an echo?
No.
No, okay. My name is Susie Sears. I'm with DKS Associates, based out of Portland, Oregon. I am here to present today the TSMO plan for AMATS. And just briefly, I'll give you a quick overview of who I am and who our team is, what TSMO is and why we're developing a plan for it. I'll share the project schedule and then some community outreach that we're doing, and just a quick focus on some upcoming activities. So first of all, I do transportation system management types plans from all up and down the West Coast, and our company has done a lot of them around the country. We also work on federal guidebooks to support anything related to TSMO, which I'll explain in a little bit. On our team, also really important part of our team is Kinney Engineering, who I'm sure you're familiar with, and I believe Joanne is in the room with you today. So wave, Joanne. Great. And then we have Gannett Fleming. They're a national company, and they bring that national perspective to us, giving us ideas and input of what other agencies are doing, other MPOs and states. So TSMO, like I've said, stands for Transportation System Management and Operations. So one way to think about our system, the whole transportation system, is as a resource to manage and to operate this resource to its full potential, to preserve what's working and to repair or improve what's not. TSMO provides that lens of looking at it from an operations and management perspective. TSMO gives us a framework for a targeted look at this resource with an emphasis on high implementable solutions than typical larger construction projects. TSMO often focuses on safety and congestion, because those are the things that people care about the most often. TSMO is also multimodal and becoming more so. It's always been defined that way, but agencies like AMATS and WashDOT, Washington State DOT, are really taking that to the next level and exploring how TSMO can be used to improve multimodal operations. There's two types of congestion that engineers and planners are concerned about: recurring congestion and non-recurring congestion. Recurring congestion is the one that we often think of. It's our commute to and from work, and it happens every day. It's predictable. We can kind of build our schedules around it. Non-recurring congestion is that unpredictable congestion that's a result of crashes, weather, avalanches, work zones, fire, special events. And this is really where TSMO shines, with a focus on spot fixes and safety. The graphic up above shows is created every now and then by Texas A&M University. This looks at nationally what's going on, but it shows that the causes of congestion and bottlenecks, which we would call that recurring congestion that we experience every day. That's that sort of medium blue that takes up about a third of the pie. The other 2/3 of the pie are those non-recurring congestions. So that's why we bring TSMO in, because we can really make some changes. Also want to say that when we reduce congestion, we improve air quality, health, and safety. For example, a significant number of crashes are called secondary crashes, and those occur at the in that queue or that congestion formed by an initial crash. So why TSMO? There's 5 key reasons why TSMO is valuable. It's a focus on a system management. We're looking really holistically at the system and working with different agencies. High impact, sometimes they're lower cost solutions, definitely more easily implemented than a major construction corridor study. TSMO also helps us take advantage of advances in technology, connected vehicles, advanced management programs using real-time data, advanced signal systems, third-party data like Waze and apps, Google Maps, traveler information, and improved detection. All of these integrate well with TSMO. Changing community expectations. So our communities are looking for to make sure that we are using our resources efficiently, and we're transparent about how we're using them, and transparent about the operations. Performance measurement and accessibility are all increasing concerns, and TSMO can really help with those things. We have a better understanding, like I mentioned up above, the causes and congestion and crashes, and so we can really target those. And then we have an opportunity to improve equity and health outcomes using data, visual outreach tools, and easy to implement projects so people don't wait a long time for a fix. One of the things that is great about TSMO is that, in addition to all the wonderful things it does, you can apply it to projects that you've already completed, or you can apply it to future projects. So a lot of times we use TSMO solutions to kind of as an early win for some larger projects. So we might be able to do, implement some sort of a quick fix while we're getting funding or finalizing an environmental impact statement or something like that for a larger project. So that's TSMO. I wanted to let you know current kind of the status of the project. We've worked on the vision and goals, and we'll be sharing that soon. We're also have done a lot of work at identifying needs, and we're working toward TSMO strategies and performance measures. We're working with a technical advisory committee made up of people from the state of Alaska, AMATs, and the municipality of Anchorage. And they are helping us tremendously help figure out where to target our work. Future work coming up, we expect to have some project lists in the fall for consideration. And I think even more importantly, we have an open house coming up in September. So that open house will give people an overview of TSMO and share where the concerns are and get their input on those ideas. So that's what I have for TSMO. Just a quick overview. I wanted to ask if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions from the committee for the TSMO? All right, any questions from the public? Okay, it doesn't sound like we have any questions. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Sure. Thanks so much. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay, item agenda 6B, Fish Creek Trail Project. Aaron, were you presenting on that or?
No, I will not. Matt Edge, actually, with CRW will be presenting on that. Stand up here, right? You can stand up, but, all right.
Yeah, let me just like to sit again. So hi, my name is Matt Edge, CRW Engineering Group, and Aaron asked me to come here today to give you a status update on the Fish Creek Trail Connection Project.
Pretty cool. Sorry, we're getting the slideshow going. Just go to the slideshow tab, update.
All right, go to the second slide. So, again, so this is the Fish Creek Trail Connection Project. This is a project that's being managed by Department of Transportation and Public Facilities, DOT. Project manager is Noah King. He's on vacation, he's not able to be here today. And then with MOA Parks and Outdoor Recreation, this project manager is Taylor Keaton, and she's here today. If you have any questions. So again, my name is Matt Edge. I'm the design team project manager. And then we also have Solstice Alaska. Kennedy is not here today, but she's doing public involvement. So here's a picture of the Fish Creek estuary. This is kind of the project area that we're working with, plus some area to the south here. So next slide. So the goals for this project are to construct a new multimodal trail connection from Northern Lights Boulevard to the coastal trail. And we're following generally the route of Fish Creek. Other goals are to control access to the Fish Creek estuary and to the Alaska Railroad Corporation facilities. Portion of the trail must go through Alaska Railroad Corporation right of way, so they're an important stakeholder, and they have concerns with trespass on their tracks and want to help to control where pedestrians go along the corridor. And then the last goal is to balance stakeholder needs and impacts, including safety, access, privacy, maintenance, and environmental stewardship. Next slide. So just a little bit about the project history. So in 1997, the project was identified in the Anchorage Area Wide Trails Plan. This is a map of the trails plan. Too bad my laser pointer doesn't show up on there, but so there's two routes identified. One follows Alaska Road right away, and one follows the west side of the of Fish Creek. In 2004, the Fish Creek estuary was established through a couple of conservation easements, one held by the Great Land Trust, and another one held by the Department of Natural Resources. Both of those easements specifically allow a trail through the estuary, so that was identified then. In 2016, AWW constructed a maintenance road along the railroad, and with that maintenance road was a fence that blocked public access along there that was typically enjoyed by the public. Then the following year, Fish Creek Trail, the Ocean Group, was formed, consisting of Skinard, Turnagain, and North Star Community Council members to try to promote a trail connection through here. In 2018, the Fish Creek Trail Connection was included in the AMATS TIP, and so we have AMATS funding for it. And then 2021, MOA Parks and Rec Bond was passed with this Fish Creek Trail of the Ocean project specifically identified that provides match money for AMATS. And there's one more bullet here that's not showing up, but in also in 2021, the AMATS non-motorized transportation plan was approved, and that also includes this connection for the Fish Creek Trail. Next slide. So project funding, I don't need to tell you guys this. This is also a presentation for the Turnagain Community Council, so that they understand it. But the project is funded through the AMATS TIP, and typically those are 90% federal money and 10% match money. I think this project is 91.9, if I understand correctly. And then the local match would be through the MOA Parks and Outdoor Recreation Bond measures. Next slide. So where we've been, so the project started off this spring, and since then it's been a lot of stakeholder coordination. So this circle represents just people that have communicated with or touched during the project, including Parks and Rec, DOT, Railroad, AWW, Great Land Trust, Department of Natural Resources, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Turnagain Community Council, the Port of Alaska, Marathon Fuel, Turnagain Community Council, and project area residents. Many of them are concerned about the project, and then trail users and the general public. I like this picture here just because it looks pretty mild, but really on this picture you have the Alaska Railroad tracks to the right. You can see the AWW maintenance road kind of toward the right side of the picture. We've got the Marathon fuel line that runs right through the creek. You got Fish Creek in the middle of it. AWW owns gravity and pressure force mains to the left side of the creek. And then you can see the Fish Creek estuary in the back, and then just to the left of this is private property. So it's all that just bundled into one area makes things complicated for us to navigate. So next slide. So after all the stakeholder coordination, what we've been doing is trying to develop trail routes through this area to present alternatives to the public and stakeholders and get feedback in order to evaluate those in a design study report. So the first thing we did was develop screening criteria. The primary criteria is consistency with the Fish Creek estuary conservation easements, including preserved, protected wetlands, wildlife, habitat, and open space. Also consistency with the 1987 Area 1 Trails Plan and AMAT's non-motorized plan, which is to establish this connection and make it multimodal, safe, and accessible. So that's a big thing with federal funding. Everything needs to be accessible. And then consistency with the ARs, the railroad goals and allowances, which includes the ability to stay in the outer 25 feet of right-of-way. And that's really because their concern is derailment, and they want to make sure that the pedestrians and that traffic is as far away as possible from that potential. Mitigate trespass on their tracks, and then improve safety. This is maybe a little too zoomed in. I'm not sure, but there's some of the bullets there that are missing. But secondary criteria is to the availability of right-of-way along the corridor, and feasibility to meet our design criteria, which includes grades and things of that nature. Where we have to meet specific grades following the MOA design criteria and DOT construction of trails. And then the last two bullets. But we can move on. So based on all the criteria that we developed, these are the trail ride alternatives that we'll be presenting to public and stakeholders for discussion and comment. We broke this project out into the north and south segments, where the break point is, I know I'm just going to point to it. I know people online can't see me, but the break point will be about right here where Fish Creek crosses the railroad right of way. So the southern alternatives include this red route, which runs, oh, perfect. Thank you. Which runs the top of an existing bluff to the west of the railroad. That is railroad right away up on top of the bluff, and a little flat area about 30 feet wide that we can use for trail. That area is fenced, so it does impact owners of properties adjacent to the railroad right of way. The second orange route is, it runs parallel to that bluff, but we would place it just a little bench further down. So we'd lower the elevation about 5 feet or so, and then run it benched into the bluff area. Essentially, it's the same kind of concept as the red route, but give it a little lower elevation, a little bit more separation from the homes out there, a little bit easier for property owners. And then this blue route runs on the east side of the railroad right-of-way along La Honda Drive, and then would cross over Fish Creek with a small bridge, and then under the railroad. Yes, sir.
So it's a little too small, and my eyes are a little too poor right now to really kind of read what it's saying. But my understanding is this is not oriented how you normally orient a map of Anchorage,
So,
right?
yeah,
So
north
this is,
is to the right. Yeah, so Northern Lights Boulevard is on the left-hand side of the screen.
right,
Coastal Trails on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm sorry, this little
yeah.
arrow there for north.
Can you point to where the coastal trail is?
Coastal Trails is this white line that extends right through here. So Westchester Lagoon is here at the bottom. So this blue route, the blue swamp there, that's all Alaska Railroad right away.
And so up on this map is towards the airport.
Yes.
Okay, so this is, I mean, it's just completely sort of like rotated
Yeah.
from how we normally think about this. But I think I understand. So you're saying that two of the routes would sort of enter, on the northern side of the stream. And then one creek, and then one is proposed to be on the southern side of the creek, is that right?
Yeah, so it's north is.
Or it's not northern,
Yeah,
like
so-
the airport side and the downtown
Correct, yeah.
side.
So if you've been out there along the Fish Creek corridor, you'll see that there's an pedestrian overpass across Northern Lights Boulevard.
Yeah.
It ties in. So these two orange and red routes are on the western side of the railroad, western side of the creek, then lined up with that overpass.
Right.
So, and then the blue route here is on the eastern side, so downtown side of the.
But where they enter is, where they enter from the coastal trail, I'm saying.
So the coastal trail's on this side,
Right.
and so those are the north half connections. I haven't really discussed those quite yet.
Okay, that's interesting. I see. So you're oriented thinking people are gonna come from the Northern Lights side. And in my head, I'm thinking people are gonna come from the, sort of off the coastal trail more often.
Yeah, but normally just from, engineering plans, we always put things either north up or to the right, so we always start at the bottom. So, or from the left to go right. So that's how I orient.
Okay.
Okay, so the blue route here, on the east side of the railroad right of way along La Honda Drive, we would cross over Fish Creek with a small bridge and underneath the railroad. We show a tunnel here under the railroad tracks, but after talking to the railroad, that would more likely be a bridge, so the tracks would be on a bridge, and so we'd open it up. One nice thing about that option is we could correct the Fish Creek as it runs underneath the railroad. So open that up as opposed to being a culvert now. So from that crossing, we have three routes that head north. So the northern routes that we have identified, and then two of those have kind of sub-alternatives. So the first of those three routes would be the pink one, which would run along the just very edge of the wetlands along the estuary. So the first half of that would actually be in the wooded area up out of the wetlands where we have municipal property that we can traverse. It would be an unpaved trail, which is a requirement of the Great Land Trust Conservation Easement. So there are some challenges with that, making sure it's accessible, making sure it doesn't fall apart. It's not a maintenance issue. And then once you get past the unpaved section, right about there is where the municipal property runs out within the wetlands. Essentially, the private property comes down right to the edge of the wetlands. So we would transition out of the woods onto boardwalk. So it'd be elevated pile support boardwalk. For the remainder of the section, then we tie into the coastal trail here. Oops, go back one. No, maybe I did that. I don't know. Switch the screen. Just to the west of the existing bridge over Fish Creek. That's on the coastal trail. The other second route is this kind of magenta route, or the reddish route there. That would go into the estuary. There'd be a bridge over Fish Creek, and then it would meander along the edge of the woods there on the eastern side of the wetlands. So we wouldn't actually go into the wetlands, but we construct an unpaved trail just to kind of follow the edge of that boundary. And the intent is to allow people to be able to see what's going on in the estuary, to have that visual look, but not actually go into the wetlands. As the wetlands encroach right up to the edge of the estuary, we would tuck back into the Alaska Railroad right of way, and then we could pop out here before we hit private property with a boardwalk that would go through the wetlands, and either cross Fish Creek again here with a bridge to tie into the coastal trail just to the west of the existing bridge over Fish Creek, or we would cross through private property with an easement and tie into the coastal trail on the east side of that of the bridge. So the last alternative is this green route here. That would essentially maintain the trail within Alaska Railroad right of way for the entire length of the project. So we would extend all the way down the railroad property to just about where the Westchester Lagoon Tunnel comes out. So the southern tunnel comes out of Westchester Lagoon and ties in the coastal trail there. We have two options at that point. We can either construct another tunnel underneath an existing driveway there to match grade with the coastal trail and tie in just right near that tunnel at Westchester Lagoon, or we can do a flyover and then continue the coast or the Fish Creek Trail on to the next tunnel. So it'd be the northern tunnel at down here where Westchester Lagoon trail comes out underneath the railroad right away. So we could tie it in there, and then we would do a switchback that connects back into the coastal trail. So a lot of options, a lot of ways to do this, and maybe too many to consider. Next slide. So our next steps are starting to begin our evaluation of our alternatives. We just have identified these routes at this point. We haven't started looking at specific costs or impacts. That's our next step. We're going to host a public open house in October. We'll do some pop-up meetings along the coastal trail before that, just to let people know what's going on and to attend the public open house. Then we'll complete the design study report. Then we'll begin design of the selected alternative. That's expected next year, the year after. So not just scheduled quite yet. And then construction, that's to be determined, so based on funding available. Next slide. I guess, yeah, that's it. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. I'm sure there's some.
Any further questions from the committee? Question? Can we go back to the route?
Yeah.
And I understand that you're in the sort of very early stages of this. Do you think you have enough money to do any of these routes? I mean, to all of these routes at this point?
All of them?
Or any of these routes you think will sort of exceed the current budget and have to go back and ask for more bond funds, for example?
So the bond funding is only 9% of the total project cost. So I'm assuming, I don't know exactly what's available for the construction. We haven't really got into the cost yet. So if you know the number, you'd have to factor that in.
So I guess just to put it like in a very broad sense, I mean, the pool of money that's come from AMATs and the municipality so far, do you think it's enough to complete any of these routes?
Design.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've only bonded for the design matching this. Whatever the preferred alternative is, that'll be associated with cost estimate, and then we'll proportionately bond depending it goes through the TIF.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Taylor Keegan. I'm the project manager for Arts.
Thank you, Tim.
sorry, yeah, I didn't know exactly how much has been bonded for sort of.
Was it like 300? How much did we bond for?
I will have to look back.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember too. It was a few years ago. So in East Anchorage, and I guess this will all come out, I'm sure, during the open houses, but in East Anchorage, we've gotten a lot of feedback about how some folks don't feel very safe in tunnels anymore. And so sort of strong preference to not have tunnels.
Yep.
That when they encounter a road. Is that sort of, to what degree does that factor into here, like that tunnel under the railroad, for example?
Well, under the railroad won't be a tunnel. And we call it a tunnel on this thing, but it'll be fairly open when we actually construct it based on conversations with the railroad. It'll be a bridge. The tracks will be on a bridge. It's going to be, 30 to 50 feet wide with the creek. So it'll be pretty open and not congested. This other tunnel that we have proposed here would be something that would be tighter. And that's part of the reason why we developed that second alternative to extend the limits down to the northern Westchester Lagoon Tunnel connection, so that we could avoid putting people in a tight confine that's uncomfortable. But the reality is, though, that we have quite a bit of grade difference between where the railroad is and the coastal trail. We don't want to just put people on a windy, steep connection and feel like there's some safety issues with that. So we got to get people down to grade or something.
Any questions from the public?
So once again, Mark Butler from the Community Council Center. This is a iconic trail project, so congratulations. It hits all the big ones. well-to-do, long-established, politically powerful people who own property there, including Wally Hickle Sr., whose house is there now occupied by one of his sons. And as those of us who are older with grayer hair may remember, the only reason the coastal trail made it through was because he personally granted the right-of-way project. The Anchorage Times, the conservative paper of those times, said this is horrible, it's the worst project ever, and then a month later they relented in big letters across the headline and said this is the greatest thing that's happened in many years. And Wally said, I've always liked going down to the coast and looking at it. I think I should, and my family should share that with the rest of the community. He granted the right-of-way and under the Tony Knowles administration, mayor, and it happened. So this is one of those projects that comes off of that. So many well-to-do people there, including the Hickles. Also, right away, the railroad, which I take to the my cabin in the woods often, so I'm a friend of the railroad. They are adamant about, you know, you can do this, you can't do this, and so forth on their right away. So this is, and then you have a very active community group made up by those three councils. I'm and other individuals. I'm the vice president of the North Star Council. We're hoping that your public meeting, that you come through the Community Council Center and send out an announcement so it goes broader than just one community council, since this, of course, is used by so many people at info@communitycouncils.org. We would love to send that out for you and send reminders. So this kind of hits it all. The two things is, one is access to the ocean. And you mentioned the group that was founded because of that. There was a cutoff of a long-used access through the Turnagain area, Turnagain Community Council by some property owners. And that provided a whole bunch of pressure to allow access this way for the Turnagain people, but also for all the Spenard people that are behind this that wish to go, and they don't want to walk on the right of way of the railroad, and the railroad doesn't want them. And if you will hear when trains are arriving, they're going, and what they're doing is trying to get people off that railroad right of way. So this is a safety project, it's an aesthetic project, and lastly, it's part of a long-term project by community organizers in Anchorage to get Fish Creek returned and daylighted and turned back into the creek that it once was here. The estuary has most of our other estuaries in Anchorage have recreational properties, trails through them. Campbell Creek has the bird viewing blinds and so forth, and they've been very well receptive. Corporations, of course, help fund that project as well. So this is a very popular one. There's lots of people watching this, so we appreciate all your efforts, and we're looking forward to October event and allowing hopefully some institutional pressure with at the key spots here if one or two people are not interested in running this project, and we will assist with that.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chair. Thank you. So going off what Mark just said, there's currently in the ARPA package about $500,000 for studying and moving forward the daylighting of Fish Creek. Is Fish Creek already daylit? I guess, is it already open along this whole route, and would that impact any of these routes?
So it's not up and underneath the railroad. It's in through a culvert underneath the railroad. Otherwise, it's open. None of our improvements would constrict the creek. We'd have bridges and other features that would have to be above the flood zone.
Yeah.
So it would span the creek.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that even as much as people want to daylight Fish Creek, I don't think you're going to daylight the railroad portion.
Well, the one alternative that would go to La Honda Drive would
creek.
Yeah, would go underneath the railroad, and we would parallel that with the creek through there. But that's, there is complications and expense associated with putting a railroad bridge in and maintaining full-time railroad access through there too.
Any other questions from the floor?
We did have one comment from Lindsay Hyduke that said, just an FYI to CRW, the sign up now or submit comments here buttons on the website don't work.
Oh, okay.
I did just try them and they both worked for me, so I don't know.
Okay. We've been getting comments from the public, so,
Yeah.
but I'll double check.
Last call. Thank you very much for your presentation.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Karen, last information item, I guess, plan updates, AMAT's Transportation Network model presentation.
Yes, John Cecil is the project manager for this. I'll let him go ahead and speak on it first.
Good afternoon, John Cecil, project manager from AMAT on travel demand model, and making a lot of progress since April when we kicked off the project. We had a presentation to the TAC back in June, and we were expecting to have that same presentation for you in that time frame, but due to a variety of conflicting schedules, we had to move it forward to the July meeting for policy committee. So on the line, hopefully, is the project manager from RSG. That's the firm that's doing the model update, and they've been associated with the travel demand model with AMAS for a long time. And so Bobby Wortman should be on the line, and he can walk you through where we stand with the model update.
Yeah, I think, does everyone have the slide deck on their screen now?
Yes, thank you.
Good. All right. So as John had said, I'm Bobby Werman. I'm the project manager at RSG for the Trail Demand Model Update. Some background about me. I've been with RSG now for 3 years in our model development group. Prior to working at RSG, I spent 7 years as a principal transportation planner in the systems planning, analysis, and forecasting group for an MPO in central Indiana. And excited to work in Anchorage. So I'm going to give a brief overview of the project, introduce some of our key staff. Joel Friedman is the principal in charge. He led the last model development effort in 2013, 2014, and bringing back Jeff Rakanja, who led a lot of the land use components of that update as well. And then we're teamed with R&M, who is the prime for the MTP plan update. So there's a lot of synergy and collaboration across both teams to ensure that the model is going to produce good results for the MTP and result in value add for AMATs. So some of our key stakeholders are AMAT staff. We have John and Aaron on the team, and then MOA Public Transportation, and then ADOT at DOT and PF. So a core update of what the 2020 model update is. We're updating new data. That's an updated base year to what will represent a 2020 year. There is some split there too because of the pandemic kind of created some issues, especially around employment data, where we kind of have to merge a few different data sets that we're not factoring in the effects of the pandemic in the base year. And then we're updating the highway and transit network to reflect current conditions. And then we're increasing the capabilities of the model through a more explicit representation of intersection approaches. We're improving the active transportation components of the model, and then updating model specifications. So this is essentially a light trail model update. And we've chosen to target the mode choice model through just discussion with AMATs on where the priority needs to be. And then improving the model's reporting functionality, which will directly support MTP efforts. It'll also support performance measure efforts for the MPO. Our project schedule, we're essentially ramping up now at this point, the base year update. Those are updating the network, the zonal structure, the planning assumptions, the future year planning assumptions. That wraps up here at the end of July. We might have about a week or two into August that this might bleed, but generally on schedule to meet our targets to have the base year and no build conditions wrapped up at the end of November. Our features, this is the model specification, improving the technical report on active transportation component, examining the benefit cost analysis tool and the post-processing routine. We're slightly delayed here by I expect about a month. Part of this is researching what needs to go into the model, active transportation model improvements, and then figuring out in time and budget what can be integrated in the model without having to do a major update to the travel demand model to get some additional sensitivity. Then talking with AMAT staff on what that might look like, and should have that finalized here in the next couple of weeks, actually. We have our validation components, so that's calibrating and validating the travel demand model. November is the timeline to essentially be wrapped up with the calibration effort for the base year. That way that can start being used for the MTP. And then documentation and training to take place into the beginning of next year. There's some shift in the schedule that I anticipate to happen just because of how tight at the hip the MTP and the model update are. And that's primarily around some delays around vision eval implementation. So to date, we've completed the project management plan. The project management plan discussed our project overview, what I just presented, our deliverable schedule, clearly defined our consultant team roles, the AMATS team roles, and then our communication decision protocols. We've also completed the public involvement plan. This primarily focused on model stakeholders. So these are peer agencies, the sources of the data that we're using in the travel demand model, and then the end users of the model. Some of our model stakeholders are the Technical Advisory Committee, Policy Committee, and then MOA Planning Department, regional partners, and the DOT. So some brief next steps of just kind of where we're at, and a lot of this is progressed since we gave the presentation to the TAC. We completed the update of the traffic analysis zones and socioeconomic data. We're wrapping up updating the highway and transit network. And then we're also wrapping up the active transportation modeling recommendations. We're underway on the future year planning assumptions, and some of the preliminary results are out there, and we're kind of discussing it between the subconsultant who's preparing that data, as well as R&M and ourselves to make sure that those look reasonable. And then we're underway with updating the model system with the new specifications to support some of the efforts in the MTP. My contact information is on the screen. Happy to take any questions from the policy committee or the general public.
Any questions? Any questions from the public on this one? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much for your presentation today.
Thank you.
Okay, Aaron, any other plans or updates?
No, there's not.
That's it. Okay. On agenda item 8, committee comments. Any comments from the committee in general of a nature? Okay, just a couple from DOT. STIP Amendment 4 is out for public review. Make sure you do that. There's $1 billion worth of new projects in Anchorage going into play. So you need to take a look at those, and if you have comments or concerns, whatever, bring them up. But a lot of good projects. 4 landing south of Anchorage to Indian. That's the bulk of it. That's the monster one. Think of that as another Cooper landing. So that's going to be a heavy lift. Interchanges at Alyeska, Girdwood, and the Sterling Y. Those have been a long time coming, so we're really happy to see those get in play. And then there's some other projects in there, but take a look at it. It's out for 30-day review. We hope to have that all approved by FHWA by September 1st. Other than that, we've got a transportation fair scheduled for Anchorage for January 12th from 3 to 7, Alaska Airlines Center. So you start putting that on your calendars. We've had some virtual ones last few years, of course, with the pandemic, so we're going to go back to in person. So January 12th, Alaska Airlines Center, 3 to 7, be the transportation fairs. We'll also have some in the valley, but wanted to get out the dates for Anchorage. Other than that, thank you all for your patience on the Dowling route, the Dowling reset. I know that's jacked up traffic on Tudor and a lot of other places, but that bridge will be open 1st of October, and then the roundabouts will be opened up by the end of October. So that'll relieve the pressure, and that'll be the big push. So that's all I have. Any other comments?
I have something. So Cindy Heil is leaving us, as we've kind of talked about in the past here. So the technical advisory committee had a little goodbye to Ms. Heil. So now we have the policy committee's goodbye. I know maybe some of the committee members have some comments, but I'm going to read a quick letter that we're going to give to Ms. Heil. And then you guys. So, dear Ms. Heil, starting in 1992 on the AMATS Technical Advisory Committee, thereabout, serving on the Policy Committee and finishing your time back on the Technical Advisory Committee in 2022, your level of dedication has helped AMATS grow and mature over the years. From helping AMATS navigate the challenging world of federal regulations regarding air quality requirements, to helping to ensure a fair and open public process is conducted, your knowledge was invaluable to the success of AMATS. Your 30+ years of service will stand as a lasting example of laughter and knowledge that you brought to AMATS. The title AMATS Mom is a fitting one that will forever be cemented into the annals of history for the organization. Your ability to gently and calmly guide staff and fellow committee members towards outcomes that serve the public's best interest, while assuring AMATS's adherence to federal rules and regulations, made sure that our efforts were consistently met with approval by our federal partners. Through your efforts, AMATS has moved from non-attainment areas for PM10 and CO to limited maintenance areas, which is a hurdle on its own for those who haven't been involved in that process. While you won't and can't take credit for that alone, you certainly led the effort, and Anchorage and Chugai Eagle River are better off thanks to you and others. We wish you all the best in your next endeavor and look forward to your continued engagement as a member of the public. Thank you for everything. Daily Policy Committee.
Would anybody like to comment, Cindy? Or
I would. So Cindy and I have worked together for probably only about a 10th of her career. But two things about her that have stood out for me, both with respect to AMATS works, but other things as well, is her patience and her willingness to take time to mentor people and walk folks through difficult, challenging topics. And also the way in which she thinks 5 steps ahead of everyone else. I think that, you know, some folks are good and diligent about getting their tasks done and staying on top of things, but Cindy has a true talent for thinking strategically and finding pathways through really difficult topics and issues. I have deeply valued Cindy's counsel and mentorship, and sad to see her go, but happy that she's off into hopefully more fun things, and hope you enjoy your retirement. Thank you so much for everything.
yeah, absolutely, Cindy. You've been such a great mentor to all of us at AMATS for so long now. Myself, you know, only 6 or 7 years, but you will be sorely missed as you move into this emeritus status, meaning we can call you anytime. Interesting, but that letter that Aaron read really only scratches the surface of just how effective and collaborative and just so all the good things that you've done, and you've really been amazing, and you will be missed, absolutely. But please come by often and as much as you can. Other comments or accolades?
This is Cheryl. I have a public comment.
Yes, ma'am.
We're not at public comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're not quite at public comment yet. Cheryl, can you hang on a minute?
I certainly can.
Other last minute committee comments or anything for Cindy?
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, agenda item 9, public comments. Carol, you still on there?
I am.
You got 3 minutes. Look, what's on your mind?
I do have a question, Aaron, and I have a statement. Aaron, are there any detailed descriptions for people who are ranking projects beyond what's on the ranking available to the public? Does it explain what reduce means, and are there definitions of those project ranking criteria?
The definitions are in the criteria itself.
Okay, all righty. Well, then I'll start by saying that one thing I can praise is that staff is trying to make the MTP and the TIP more consistent. And that's great to actually make those linkages and make that clear. But of course, the whole AMATS process still remains very confusing. to the public, if not even to our elected officials. And requests for public review to clarify key elements, the request the Assembly has made recently, such as the draft performance targets and the project ranking criteria, have been routinely denied this spring and summer. These problems are leading AMATs to potentially waste hundreds of millions of dollars. Instead of the current system we have, the current lists, we should be focusing on projects that reduce vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gases citywide. Secondly, we should also focus on projects that strengthen bike and pedestrian safety where most people actually live and work in the urban core. So, AMAT's rejected pedestrian safety project for A and C streets while financing massive freeway construction is a key example. My final statement, I heard perhaps it was you, Mr. Dunbar, asking about available money to build Fish Creek. I don't think it's routinely known. I've asked before last years and gotten blank stares. But the Federal Highway Administration allows Alaska Department of Transportation to shift its dollars among its programs and then use them accordingly to new program criteria. For instance, national highway dollars can be put into surface policy, surface transportation block grants. Sorry, that always stumbles. So you can understand why it's very tempting to have the State Department of Transportation start participating in the actual transportation planning that Anchorage does. Right now, we're parallel tracks, it appears, going in different directions. And so I think there are some things to be made by bringing ADOT into the planning process for Anchorage, getting some consensus on where they spend their money in the town. $1 billion would go a long way towards resolving some of the long-term nasty issues that citizens have complained about for decades. So that's my pitch for today, folks. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Mark Butler, Community Council Center. So we also are very confused. Most of our delegates and people who are very involved in community councils are confused as to the different types of projects and so forth. We talked to Aaron and others about, we had him come in and give a tip presentation to the Federation of Community Councils. But we've been frustrated when talking to DOT, and I'm a retired DOTer myself, with trying to understand the whole infrastructure thing. We have a tip project. I'm stepping back a touch. Many years ago, when I moved here, when I was a young man, they were building freeway intersections all the way out. And people were saying, why do we need it in Rabbit Creek? Why do we need it in Birchwood? Because there wasn't much developed in those areas. So what we did is build the freeways out, and then they come to town, and then we destroy our city streets. And right now, there's only two ways to do that. About $30 million for the road drainage bond every year that for many years has been voted positively by the citizens, and then the tip. And my understanding is that there's no more money in the infrastructure bill for the tip project. And my understanding is there's about, looking at the chart, there's about $200 million of unsatisfied projects there. And we're wondering, does Anchorage get some of this money too? We like the freeways, we like the connections between different cities and improving them. That's of course important for all of us who live here. But is TIP going to be doubled in the amount of money? Tripled, quadrupled? There's just one time in our lifetime, are we going to have this amount of money coming in? And we're unclear as to what's happening. We would like a presentation at the September 21st Fall Equinox FCC meeting by DOT yourself or one of your staff, trying to understand this, and so that we can get the roads fixed in Anchorage. In my area, North Star, of course, we have Fireway Lane and Spenard Road being finished. And we like those projects, but they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years away. But the transportation infrastructure bill is putting money in very soon into projects. So we're interested in having the 40% or so of Alaskans who live in Anchorage get our neighborhood streets that are greatly in need of improvement. So we would love to have a presentation. We'd love to connect to James and other people about that. We've been frustrated the last couple of months by not getting able to get information coming in.
You can certainly contact James and he can set up a presentation to your community council. And I'm the only Wolfgang in TOT, so call me if you can't get that.
Okay, and thank you. And is there going to be infrastructure money for local streets and things? I don't mean subdivision streets, but the projects that are like the TIP projects that have already been approved, there's a need, there's established? Or is it just going to freeways and roads to other cities?
There is an increase in formula funds that goes to shaking your head or.
No, the
Go ahead,
TIP is
answer your
not
question.
receiving an increase of funding.
Through the
If
whole
they-
infrastructure
Yeah,
plan?
if it is, it's a minor amount. We're receiving an increase of funding for things like TAP, the Transportation Alternative Programs, is going from 900,000 to 1.9 million. So there's a small amount there, and then we're getting a new pot for carbon reduction funding, about 3.6 million a year.
So the decision to not increase the TIP type projects, which has the input of course, two commissioners and their representatives, the mayor and two representatives of the assembly. That decision is made locally here by the governor and the DOT-PF, or is that decision just, there's no way we can get those funds?
Well, decisions about the AMATS's allocation is made by DOT and PF headquarters. And they have a program formula that they use to help determine that based on population, the other factors. So they're looking at that.
42% of the population. And the old saying, fix America first, this is fix Anchorage first. We have a lot of projects that need to bring up our streets to a higher quality so that people are safe and secure and, you know, and so forth, all the typical ones.
You know, the best piece of advice I can offer is that, and I've told this to the mayor and everybody else, really engage with your legislators. I've been at the DOT 28 years now. I really don't see as much advocacy on the part of our legislators from Anchorage at the DOT headquarters during legislative sessions advocating for projects. But you sure see Senator Stedman down there trying to convert funds for brand new ferries, what amounts to 7% of the population. You sure see Click Bishop up at Fairbanks advocating for a lot of money to go to Ambler Road and all these other projects.
We got a lot of projects.
So this is the point being, this is a political thing where we need to get our legislators engaged and advocating in the STIP and at DOT headquarters saying, we're 40% of the population. Why are we only getting 20% of the money?
Exactly.
But that's something I can't do. That's something you need to get the legislators to do because they're the ones that have that ability to
The
change.
commissioner does?
I'm sorry?
The commissioner, your boss doesn't?
No.
Have that ability?
This is political. You need to think legislature and governor. You know, that's where the advocacy. I mean, Senator Machicki got a lot of stuff done this year, but he was the Senate president, right? So when he said open up Silvertip got opened up, right? So.
Well, we're hopeful that our 42% of the state, us Alaskans are just as important to all elected officials and so forth, and people in the administration.
There are some officials, Zach Fields, actually peels back the onion a little bit on DOT stuff. And it's very much appreciated from our perspective, because now he can get insight into what's really going on. How does the money flow? Where does it go? Who decides where it goes? So, but really, your elected officials are the ones you need to engage with. It's not something I can change.
Okay, well, we'll be doing that. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah, highly encouraging.
This is
Again,
Cheryl. If I can skin for a sentence, this is,
Go ahead, sure.
thank you. Again, I'm not ADOT participated in this planning rather than, for years, we have gone in and asked for particular projects such as the Knik Arm Crossing. And I think it's important for there to be a unified plan and less pork barreling of projects. And Wolfgang, I didn't mean to say that that's what you're advocating, but I know that when we're elected officials, sometimes we go straight to pork barrel. So that's not always true, but I would, again, please let's plan things together and set common priorities. Thank you.
Okay, last call for public comments. Okay, hearing none. Item 10, known as the adjournment item. Do I have a motion? Come on.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Seconded, moved and seconded. No, if there are no objections to approving that motion, then I will assume there are none. Meeting is adjourned at 2:45 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Staff after everything.